Shri Gurubhyo Namah Harihi Om Dhyayamo Dhavalavagunthanavatim Tejomayim Naishtikim Snigdhapangavilokinim Bhagavatim Mandasmitashremukhim Vatsalyamritavarshiniim Sumadhuram Sankirtanalapinim Syamangim Madhusiktasuktim Amritanandatmikam Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah. Om Amriteshwaryai Namah. Let us continue with our discussion on Bhaja Govindam. So far we have discussed 23 verses in Bhaja Govindam, and as we have done in every previous session, let us quickly go over all the verses that we have discussed till now, just discussing the gist of every verse. So beginning with the first verse, the unnecessary complications that we create about life, try to go beyond that and try to develop devotion, humility. Verse 2 was about greed, the tendency to accumulate more and more wealth, try to go beyond that. Third one, our fixation on the physical appearance, try to go beyond that. The fourth one reminds us of the very nature of life being unpredictable, to be prepared for whatever surprises we may have that life would throw at us. The fifth verse was about how we would have following, we would have people admiring us as long as we have abilities and wealth in every form. Once that depletes, even the following and the praise and all that would deplete. The sixth verse was about as long as there is life in this body, we will have people's attention and love. As long as life disappears, people will slowly start forgetting about us. The seventh verse was about in various stages, we are obsessed about various different things. Rather, we least do we actually think of that which needs to be focused on. So we waste our time in every phase of our life. The eighth verse was about understanding the limitation of relationships. Finally raised the question, who am I? And the ninth verse, now that we are in the path of inquiry, who am I? Where do we start? Start with good company, because that will help us develop detachment. That would in turn help overcome delusion. That way we can reach the truth. The 10th verse was about how in various phases of life we hold certain things significant, and without any doubt at later point of time they do not hold the significance anymore. They are no more as significant as we held them before. So always deal with things with the understanding that they are not going to be significant at some later point of time. That we will be able to deal with it in a much more matured manner. The 11th verse was about if things are impermanent, if they are not going to be significant at later point of time, why take unnecessary pride in them? The 12th one was about how life gives us dual experiences, good and bad experiences. We would be successful in life as long as we are able to not get swayed by the emotions of either of these experiences, rather stay right in the middle path. The 13th verse was about good company, stressing on good company, especially the company of the Guru, which would eventually, or which is the only way to take us across the ocean of life, ocean of transmigration. The 14th verse was about now we try to grow spiritually. The growth shouldn't be outwardly, rather it should happen within. And as it happens within, it naturally happens outwardly too. So spiritual growth is not for show off, rather it's to answer your own conscience. The 15th and 16th verses were about desires, how though we lose abilities and wealth and people and things, still we hold on to our desires as tight as we could. So it's a reminder for us to let go of it. The 17th verse was about austerities and rituals, how they are very useful for us in our initial part of our spiritual growth, but we need to overcome them. We need to go beyond them at some point of time. Just sticking on to rituals and austerities will kind of inhibit us from growing. So it's not just about the mechanical things that we do, rather try to bind by the principles they stand for. 18th verse underscores about dispassion, how when we have dispassion, or one who has dispassion, how can he ever be not happy, is the question the 18th verse was posing. The 19th verse was about whatever condition we are in, good or bad, challenging, pleasant, etc. If our mind is fixated on the Supreme, we can ever be rejoiceful, was what the 19th verse was talking to us. The 20th verse was talking about how we should try to imbibe the essence or the principle behind the scriptural text like Bhagavad Gita, the essence behind the whole idea of what Mother Ganga, the holy river Ganga, stands for. Try to develop devotion. The 21st verse is talking about how we are stuck in the vicious cycle of life and birth. Again and again we come and lay down, we lie on the in the mother's womb and again take a birth, do the same mistakes again, take a birth. Try to go beyond that. Try to go beyond desires and attachments. That's the only way to get out of this vicious cycle. 22nd verse was about understanding who truly a yogi is. One who takes the least from the world, gives the most back to the world. Such people are definitely difficult to comprehend by the rational mind all the time. And then the 23rd verse, which we started with last week, the 23rd, today we'll do 24, 25, and we have 26th verse, which we'll do the next week. So 23rd verse set the beginning to asking the question again, who am I? And the 23rd verse was more specific to asking, who am I with the relationships I have, with the bonds I have with people and things. So asking the question, who am I? And try to realize who am I irrespective of the things and people that I'm bound to. So that's the first step. And today we'll discuss 24 and 25, which would be again on the same topic, but now we are trying to go more deeper rather than just relating or thinking about it with respect to the bonds and relationships that we have. So we'll move on to the 24th and 25th verse today. We'll discuss both of them today because both of them discuss upon the same topic, or they discuss on the same topic. So the 24th verse goes as Tvai mai chanyatraiko Vishnu vyartha kupyasi mayas sahishnu bhava samachitta sarvatratvam vanchasyadi vanchasi achirat. So vanchasya achirat yadi vishnutvam is what the 24th verse is. So let's go over the 24th verse and then the 25th. Let's first look into the pronunciation. It goes as, please respond twice after me. Tvai, 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 mai, 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 cha, 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 anyatra, anyatra, anyatra. It is anyatra ekah Vishnu. So it's anyatra ekah Vishnu. Ekah Vishnu together would become eko Vishnu. Then anyatra plus eka will become anyatreka. So anyatraika. So anyatraiko Vishnu is how it is there. So it is anyatra Eko Vishnu. So Eko, please respond after me. Eko, Eko, Eko. Vishnu. S and the N both have dots below. So rolling your tongue up. Shna, shna, shna. Vishnu, Vishnu, Vishnu. So cha anyatra eko Vishnu. Together would be chanyatraiko Vishnu. Chanyatraiko Vishnu. Chanyatraiko Vishnu. Vyartha, th, tha. Vyartha, vyartha, vyartha. Vy, vya, 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 vya. Vyartha, vyartha, vyartha. Kupyasi, kupyasi, kupyasi. Mai, mai, mai. It is mai asahishnu. Together it would become mayasahishnu. 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 Again the S and the H, so S and the N in the end part of the term both have dot below. So rolling your tongue up, retroflex, shnu. Mayasahishnu. Mayasahishnu. Third line, bhava, bh, bha. Bhava, bhava, bhava. Samachitta, tt. There are two t's. Had it been one t, it would be samachitta. Because there are two t's, it is samachitta. 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 Sarvatra. 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 Tvam. Tvam. Bhava samachitta sarvatra tvam. The fourth line could be split into vanchasi achirad yadi vishnutvam. These are the four terms. All of them put together is what is mentioned in the fourth line. So let's go to word by word first. Vanchasi. It is CHH. CH is cha. CHH is cha. So vanchasi. 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 Achirad. 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 It should typically be vanchas hyphen yachirad because they are together. So together when you chant it, it would become vanchasya chirad. Vanchasya chirad. Vanchasya chirad. Yadi. 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 Vishnutvam. 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 So tvai mai chanyatraiko Vishnu. Vyartha kupyasi mayasahishnu. Bhava samachitta sarvatratvam. Vanchasya chirad yadi vishnutvam. So let's chant it together in tune. I'll do it for the first time. In case you're familiar, please chant along with me. Else, join me the second time. So it goes as Tvai mai chanyatraiko Vishnu vyartha kupyasi mayasahishnu bhava samachitta sarvatra tvam vanchasya chirad yadi vishnutvam. Once more. Tvai mai chanyatraiko Vishnu vyartha kupyasi mayasahishnu bhava samachitta sarvatra tvam Vanchasya cherat yadi vishnutvam. Let's move on to the 25th, look into the pronunciation and then look at the meaning of both the verses. The 25th verse goes as Shatrau mitre putre bandhau ma kuru yatnam vigraha sandhau sarvasminnapi pashyatmanam sarvatotsraja bhedajnanam. Sarvatrotsraja bhedajnanam. It's a bit of a tongue twister in the last line. Anyway, let's look into the pronunciation word by word. Please respond twice after me. Shatrau, S with the mark on the top. So, flat tongue, sha, sha. Shatrau, shatrau, shatrau. Mitre, mitre, mitre. Putre, putre, putre. Bandhau, D-H, dha. Bandhau, bandhau, bandhau. Ma, ma, ma. Kuru, kuru, kuru. Yatnam, yatnam, yatnam. Vigraha, vigraha, vigraha. Sandhau, D-H, dha. Sandhau, sandhau, sandhau. Sarvasmin. The next word is, okay, that's how it is mentioned, right? Sarvasmin, sarvasmin, sarvasmin. Api, api, api. Sarvasminnapi, sarvasminnapi, sarvasminnapi. Pashya, pashya, pashya. Atmanam, atmanam, atmanam. So pashya, atmanam together would be pashyatmanam, pashyatmanam, pashyatmanam. The next term, it is Sarvatra utsrija. So the first term is Sarvatra, 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 and utsrija, U-T-S-R-J-A, utsrija, utsrija, utsrija. So together A and O, A and U together would become a O. So it would become Sarvatrotsrija, Sarvatrotsrija, Sarvatrotsrija. The tongue twisting problem here is because it is TR and then SR together. Tra, sra. Sarvatrotsrija, Sarvatrotsrija. Bheda, 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 BH, bha. And ajnanam, ajnanam, ajnanam. So bhedajnanam, bhedajnanam, bhedajnanam. Shatrau mitre putre bandhau ma kuru yatnam vigraha sandhau sarvasminnapi pashyatmanam sarvatrotsrija bhedajnanam. So let's chant it together in tune. Please join me the first time if you're familiar, else the second time. Shatrau mitre putre bandhau ma kuru yatnam vigraha sandhau sarvasminnapi pashyatmanam sarvatrotsrija Bhedajnanam. Once more. Shatrau mitre putre bandhau ma kuru yatnam vigraha sandhau sarvasminnapi pashyatmanam sarvatrotsrija bhedajnanam. The third line, sarvasminnapi. There are two N's. Had it been just one N, it would be sarvasminapi. Because there are two N's, it is sarvasminnapi. There is a stress there, because there are two N's. Anyway, now let's look into the meaning. The first one, the 24th verse, Tvai, in you. In you. Mai, in me. So in you, in me. Cha, and. Cha, anyatra. Anyatra, in every other place. So in you, in me, everywhere else. What? Ekah, one. Vishnu. Vishnu referring to the divine. And it's Lord Vishnu in this case, but representative of the Supreme. So in you, in me, elsewhere, everywhere, it is just one Supreme, one God, in everyone, in everything. Vyartha, vyartha, in vain. In vain, what? Kupyasi, you get angry. In vain, you get angry. Mai, in vain, you get angry towards me, in me. Asahishnu, asahishnu, being impatient. So being impatient, you just get angry towards me, which is in vain. No, it's of no use. This anger and this impatience is of no use. Bhava, you become what? Samachitta, samachitta. This is something we have discussed throughout the chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. Chitta, the intellect, the mind. Sama, make it equipoised, make it equal in every situation. Samachitta, sarvatra, everywhere. Tvam, you make the mind equipoised everywhere, every moment. Vanchasi, the thing that you are yearning for, the thing that you are wanting. Vanchasi, achirad, without delay. Yadi, that which. So that which you are yearning for, that you're yearning to get it soon, without delay. What? Vishnutvam. Vishnu, the divine. Vishnutvam, it's the state that the divine represents. Vishnutvam. So, what does the second, the 24th verse say? The first one that we are discussing today, it says, in me, in you, and everywhere else is the same divine. Unnecessarily, we get impatient and angry. What we need to do is make our mind equipoised. Only that will help us attain soon that which we desire for. What? The ultimate state, the supreme divine state. And then the 25th verse, we'll summarize both of these together after we look into the 25th. The 25th verse says, Shatrau mitre putre bandhau. Shatrau, enemies, referring to the enemies. Mitre, in the friend. Putre, in the son or in the children. Bandhau, in people who are our relatives, who we are bound by, who we bond with. So, in enemy, in friend, in children, in relatives. Ma kuru. Ma, don't. Kuru, do. Don't do. Do not what? Yatnam. Do not put in the effort, or do not try to invest or wear out your energy. Do not wear out your energy in doing what? Vigraha sandhau. Vigraha, to separate, sandhau, to come together. We are constantly in this cycle of becoming friends, becoming enemies, becoming friends, becoming enemies, coming in good terms, coming in bad terms. So just don't waste your time in that cycle of bonding and unbonding, bonding, unbonding. With who? With friends, with enemies, with relatives, with children, all of them. It is just waste of energy. Sarvasmin api, sarvasmin, in everything and everyone, api. Verily, also, it literally means also, in verily in everything, pashyat, pashya, see, witness, atmanam, the self. Witness your own self in everything and everyone. Then you would not be in the cycle of becoming a good friend, becoming bad friend. Amma is never in the cycle of becoming our good friend and otherwise, right? She's always the constant with us. Amma's bond with everyone is just constant because she sees herself in everyone. She sees everyone in herself. Similarly, sarvasminapi pashyatmanam, see the self in everyone. Sarvatra, everywhere, utsraja, utsraja, uproot. Just take it out, pull it out, uproot. What? Bheda ajnanam, bheda, that which separates. Bheda, separation. Ajnanam, ignorance. So uproot everywhere that ignorance which creates division, which makes us feel different from something or someone else. So the 25th verse is talking about just don't get into this business of bonding and unbonding with people and things. Rather, be constant. How? Seeing your own self in them and everything else. And uproot the ignorance that creates the division, that makes you feel yourself different from others. So the summarizing points, the 23rd verse is talking about in me, in you, in everything is the same divine, is the same pervading reality, the same pervading supreme. So let us not get into the state of anger and impatience. Typically we get impatient and angry, telling, oh, I'm doing all these spiritual practices, I'm attending all the scriptural discussion sessions, I'm getting nowhere. This is just waste of time. That's one. Two would be, I just can't see the divine everywhere. Then what's the point? That impatience. Try to get over that impatience because it is a slow process, is what the verse is trying to point out to us. And it is reminding us to remain equipoised in every situation that we are in. That is the main ingredient that would take us to the ultimate goal. And the 24th verse, continuing with the very topic, it says, there is just no point striving with people and things, getting into good books, getting into the bad books, getting into the good books, getting into the bad books. Rather, maintain a constant relationship with all. How can you do that? When we see our own self in everyone, then there is no hating or loving because we are always constant with our own self, right? Similarly, just remain in that constant bond with everyone. And how can we do that? When we try to put in the effort to uproot the ignorance in us, which divides us from others. And this is not complete here. We need to move on to the 26th verse, which talks about how to uproot that ignorance. So we'll discuss that the next week. So today's discussion, we'll limit it till here. So before we go into discussing further about these two verses, we'll just quickly recap what we discussed the last week. The 23rd verse, we were discussing about who we are, the questioning about who we are and who we are not. Based on, our typical recognition of ourselves is based on the bonds and the relationships that we have, the ownership that we have, and all that. Of course, that doesn't mean we should deny all that we have. We discussed that, right? The things that we own are the things that we own. The people who we are bound by or bound with are the people we are bound with. Be it father, mother, we are bound by them. They are our father and mother. We cannot deny that. So there is no point denying them. Rather, having a nice father, having a nice mother, having a beautiful house, having a nice car is a blessing in one way. But the point is, our identity should not be based on them. That's all. doesn't mean deny them. Our identity shouldn't be based on that. Why? Because they are impermanent in nature. In case they disappear, we should not have an identity crisis, right? So, when do we have a constant identity? When it is not dependent on things that are independent. Rather, we should see others, we should recognize others based on us. And how do we do that? That's what we are discussing in these two verses. We do that by seeing your own self in everyone. When we see our own self in everyone, it becomes constant. Our outlook at people and things becomes constant. So that's where we ended the last week, telling we need to look at ourselves in everyone, get into that constant relationship. So we'll continue with that. So both the verses today are, touching upon that very point. Talking about the relationships that we have. I've given this example during the Bhagavad Gita discussion, this chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita discussion. I was telling you about how certain people I know them personally in Amritapuri. It happens even otherwise. When you take up the path of being a renunciate, you become a monk. You're told we renounce everything, including relationships, etc. But that doesn't mean you deny your father and mother. That's what Amma always reminds us. Like I had mentioned to you, Amma makes it a point to tell me whenever I can, I should help aged parents. I should, in whatever way I can be helpful to them, I should try doing that. Always try to keep them happy. Not getting entangled in that relationship. Like I had mentioned to you how Amma asked me to go to, last time when I was in India from November through January, Amma very specifically asked me to go and spend some time with my biological mother, who used to live in Amritapuri but for a few months was away because of her health, with one of my sisters. So Amma made it a point to ask me to go and stay with her for a few days. And I stayed with her for a week and then went to Amritapuri. And Amma was like, 1 week is not enough. I asked you to stay with her for some time. Why did you just come here so quickly? You should stay with her for 2 or 3 weeks. And I then decided to stay for 2 weeks. And, as Amma decides, things happen that way. The day I was supposed to leave back to the US, I just tested positive for COVID. And I had 0 symptoms, and everyone else around me, including children, whoever was there, everyone tested negative. So it was definitely a false positive is what I feel, but it made me stay 1 more week. So like Amma mentioned, be there for 3 weeks. And I stayed there for 3 weeks. And a month and a half later, my biological mother passed away. So Amma foresaw that probably and wanted me to make her as happy as I could before I left before she had to leave. So Amma makes it a point to tell us, you are renouncing all these bonds, basically means don't get entangled in them. But doesn't mean you just deny them. So the example I was trying to give you was, sometimes it happens when someone newly becomes a monk. So they have this, fresh thought about, I am a renunciate. I need to denounce everything. So my mom, my dad, I'll not talk to them. If I see them, I'll just walk some other way. I'll not talk to them at all because I've renounced them. That probably, that I wouldn't say is a wrong way of thinking, probably is a incomplete way of thinking. So what would happen if there's a group of people, including their parents, standing in front of them? They'll speak with everyone except for their parents. So even that, in a way, is a special treatment, right? They are able to talk to everyone else, not just to their parents. That means they are giving some special consideration to the parents. That's why not speaking to them, right? Am I clear? That makes sense? So even sometimes renouncing blindly is a form of attachment because they have that strong bond. They feel, I shouldn't talk to them, right? Rather, get to a state wherein you accept everyone the way they are, not getting entangled in them. So that's what it means when we were discussing the last week, that we need to renounce these, our identity. We need to realize our own self irrespective of the people we are bound with, the things that we own, the things that we possess. So rather than disowning these things, deal with them with the attitude that I am not bound by them. I am who I am, irrespective of whether they are or they are not. So that should be the level we need to get to. That was the first step that we were discussing the last week. Then we move on to understanding who we truly are. In Sanatana Dharma, there is this practice of neti, neti. Neti, na iti. Na, not iti. Does. So, not this, not this, not this, not this is the approach. The approach of negation. Who am I? Or who is the supreme truth? Or what is the supreme truth? It is not this, it is not this, it is not this. You negate one by one. I am the greatest person. I am the greatest singer. I am the strongest person. I am the most handsome or beautiful looking person. One by one, you try to negate them, telling, when I grow old, I'm not going to be as beautiful or handsome. When I grow old or I meet with an accident, I may not be the strongest person. I may not be the best singer. All those are impermanent. So who am I? I'm none of these. I'm not based on any of these. So neti, neti, neti. You try to negate one by one. So that's where we started the last week, right? Try to realize yourself irrespective of the things that we have. So neti, neti, one by one, we negate them. And then once we go over the first step, then we get to the next step. Like one of the residents here suggested the last time, right? Talking about the experience in that state where there is no personality, there's no identity, there is no body, there's no mind. We need to get to that state. That is the next step. Of course, when we are still in a state where we are bound with people and things, it would be difficult to get to the next step. So the very first step is try to understand who you are based on negating things. Try to understand yourself irrespective of others. Then we get to the state wherein we are or we realize our own true self, devoid of the personality, the identity, the external identity that we have, even not being bound by our own body, not being bound by our own thoughts, our mind. That's the state we need to get to. And that's what, Adi Shankaracharya, when he was, we've discussed this earlier too, especially I think during the Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 discussion. When he was asked who he is, who are you? If we are given an opportunity to ask, to tell who I am, we'll have a long 5 to 10 minutes talk about our achievements, telling, I am such and such person. Do you know my father? He was such and such person. You know my grandfather, such and such person. Do you know my uncle, such and such person? It's a typical joke that people share. You know who I am joke. Typically if you get pulled over by a cop in India, the first question is, do you know who my uncle is? Is the first question the driver would ask. So the cop has to make sure who his uncle is. Otherwise he may get into trouble if the uncle is a powerful politician. In any case, rather, Adi Shankaracharya, when he was asked who I am, his answer was, I am none of these. It was like the neti neti approach. The Nirvana Shatkam, the 6 verses about the state of realization, the state of nirvana, the state of liberation was exactly that. We chant that sometimes, we sing it during bhajans, right? Mano buddhya hankara chittani naham. I'm not this mind, I'm not the intellect, I'm not the body, I'm not father, I'm not mother, I'm not relationship, I'm not the guru, I'm not the disciple, I am not this, I'm not that, I'm not the 5 stealth of the sheaths of my body, I'm not the intellect, I'm not the atma, and all these various concepts that we have about our existence. I am none of these. And every verse of the 6 verses he ends with, I am none of these, I am nothing but Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham Shiva, I am Shiva, I am Shiva, I am the Supreme, I am the Supreme. Chidananda Rupa, I am ever in the supreme state of bliss, realizing the supreme consciousness. I am the Supreme, I am the Supreme. So once we negate these things, we truly realize who we are. We are in that state of where there is nothingness. So I just had the Nirvana Shatkam displayed in case you want to go over it. We'll be anyway sharing the slides, right, with you. I assume you open the, you at least 5% of you who get the emails open the slides and read them. In case you do, the Nirvana Shatkam is there. Probably it's too small for you on the screen right now, but when you get the PDF, you can always take a look at it. So Nirvana Shatkam, Adi Shankaracharya verily mentioned this very concept, this very idea. I am who I am beyond all these, where there is no personality, no individuality, etc. We talk about the same Supreme, the same power, the same consciousness pervading all and everything, right? That's the state we need to get to. When we get to the state wherein we don't associate ourselves with anything and everything, we get to that state of oneness, wherein we feel just oneness in everything and everyone, experiencing the same Supreme, the same power, the same consciousness pervading in everything. Amma often gives the example of the reflection of the sun in a pot, in several pots filled with water. You would see as many suns, as many pots there are, right? You would see the reflection of sun. That doesn't mean there are as many suns. Sun is only one. All you see is the reflection of the same sun in every pot, in the water surface in every pot, right? Similarly, it is the same Supreme whose reflection we experience through each one of us, each one that we deal with, each thing that we deal with. Also gives the example of how we may feel air through the fan. Through a fan, we may experience air. Through a light, we may experience brightness. Through an ironing, iron, right? What do you call for it? Ironing machine? Iron. Through an iron, we experience heat. But all of these are what? Manifestation of the same electric energy that is flowing through these gadgets, right? So the experience may be different based on the nature of the items, but the essence behind all of these is one and the same. Similarly, we may have different experiences with different things and different people, but the essence behind every one of them is the same Supreme. The same Supreme thus pervades in everything and everyone is what Amma teaches us through these examples. So what does it mean when we say the divine is in everything and everyone? Not that I have the solution for it to discuss, but I thought at least as the first step, like we can understand it in a few ways of comprehending the divine in everyone and everything. The first of it probably could be through the qualities that are existent in people. The Supreme or the divine is nothing but the very culmination, or not culmination, the very nebulae of goodness, right? Because we've discussed even Lalita Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of the Divine Mother. Each one of them was pointing out the goodness that one could have, one could reflect upon, the great qualities that the Divine Mother represents. The same we discuss in other scriptural texts too. We need to focus on developing the goodness in us. The goodness is what the Supreme is. You know, we think about Rama, Krishna, Kamsa, Ravana. Rama and Ravana, both of them were kings in the same Indian subcontinent. How are they different? The only difference, or the main difference, Ravana was a very able person too. He was very learned. He was very thorough with scriptures. Some of the texts that he wrote are followed by people even today. You know, the Shivatandava Stotram. It's a very hard to chant, tongue twister set of verses that describes the the divine dance of Lord Shiva, the Tandava. So Ravana was also a learned person, but Rama is known as divine, and Ravana is known as a demon. What makes the difference? The qualities that they had. Ravana did have good qualities, but his dominant qualities were based on his ego, negative ones. Rama, on the other side, his dominant qualities that he expressed through his life was positive ones. That's why Rama is considered divine, Ravana is considered otherwise. Krishna and Kamsa. Kamsa is his maternal uncle. Both of them belong to the very same family. Kamsa is considered demon, Krishna is considered divinely. Again, for this very reason, the qualities that they expressed made them divine or otherwise. Similarly, Amma says every person has good qualities in them. However bad they may seem, there would be some good quality in them. We need to look at that. That would help us look at the divine in them, because if we equate divine with good qualities, it would make it easy for us to look or experience the divine in everyone through the good qualities in them. Amma always gives the example of a broken clock. Even a broken clock shows the right time at least twice every day. So there is some good quality even in a useless broken clock. Similarly, Amma says everything has goodness in them. Amma gives many examples. Amma says how criminals, when even the hardcore criminal, when he or she sees his or her child, the love within them just brims out when they see the child. So there is goodness in them which they restrict through their ego or whatever else we can term it as. But there is goodness in them. So there is goodness in everyone. Even some of the terrorists that we know of, they create tyranny around the world. They create so much trouble around the world. But even they may have certain qualities which we could take inspiration from. We may say, oh, a terrorist, we should never acknowledge them. But their dedication towards their religion or their dedication towards whatever principle they are focused on is driving them to do something. That dedication is definitely good, but that good dedication was misused by people. They were brainwashed, and all that goodness they had was made to use, that dedication was made to use for a negative purpose. That is what we need to condemn. But even they have something good in them. Their dedication, if we can translate that dedication into us for something that is a good cause, of course, that will help us help others. So everyone and everything has good quality in them. So if we look at the good quality in everyone, why not? Then we can always experience the divine in everything, because divine is nothing but a collection of all the good qualities put together. Even in non-living things. When it rains, it doesn't say, oh, I like this house, I don't like this house, so I'll rain only here, I will not rain elsewhere. When it rains, it just rains. Irrespective of who it is raining on, it is impartial. There is something to learn from the rain. There is something to learn from the tortoise. We discussed about tortoise in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right? How we should develop patience like the tortoise. It pulls in all its limbs and head into the shell when getting attacked. Rather than retaliating, rather than getting agitated in a situation, we should try to pull in our senses, is what the verse was talking about. Similarly, even a tortoise has something to teach us. A robot, a lifeless robot, has something to teach us. The way it subscribes to, adheres to instructions, to the algorithm that it is designed with, is something that we should get inspiration from. Dedication, impartiality is all something we should learn from robots. So everything and anything has good qualities in them. If we focus on those good qualities, how can we not help but see the divine in everything and everyone? So one way of looking or understanding the divine pervading in everything and everyone could be through qualities. That is one option. The second option probably is trying to understand or trying to acknowledge the force that makes everything function. Be it any human being, be it any non-living thing, there is a force that makes it stay put, that makes it survive, that makes it remain as it is. A rock that we see somewhere, there are so many forces acting on it for it to stay as a rock, to stay in that shape, to stay in that consistencies, to stay in that position. There are forces acting on it. Considering a human being, there are forces that makes the lungs function, there are force that makes the heart beat, the kidney function. Amma says when we open our mouth to yawn, we do need grace even to close the mouth. Think about it. We open the mouth and we are not able to close the mouth. Think of that condition. It is a miserable condition we would be in. So even for that, we need grace. So for a person to function, even for a non-living thing to function, there is grace that is acting upon them. There's a force that is acting upon them. Isn't that divine? Isn't that the act of divine? So we want to see the divine in them. Look at them functioning. It's all divine's play in them or in things. So why can't we recognize that and acknowledge that? That way, we would be able to see the divine in them, in everything. So that could be the second option we could do. The third one is to just literally think about the existence of things. Me, you, this chair, this mic, we're all made out of the same things. We go down to the level, it comes down to the level of atoms and molecules. It comes down to the level of electrons, neutrons, and protons, right? And physics has gone even further to break them down into smaller particles. Eventually, all of us are made out of the same item. Then how can we be different? How am I different from someone else? If we think about from that point of view, that could be another way of realizing the same thing pervading in everyone. Just that the manifestation is different, but the building block is one and the same. So that could be the third way of recognizing the divine in everyone. And there could be many other ways of interpreting it too or looking at it too. So we've so far not had, I think we have had only one assignment during Bhaja Govindam. So this could be the next assignment. If you could share your thoughts and how can or how have you done it or how can you suggest we do it, what are the other ways of understanding divine in everyone or recognizing or realizing divine or seeing divine in everyone. What are the other ways? What are the other ways of starting that process? One we discussed is qualities. Two we discussed is the force, the grace that makes everything and everyone happen. So that was the second thing. The third thing, literal physical build-up. We are all built of the same building blocks. So we are all one and the same technically. So three things is what I suggested. I did the easy ones. Now you think about the complex ones. And if you could, as usual, write to us at macenterec@gmail.com, EC for East Coast, macenterec@gmail.com. I'll share those thoughts in the eventual discussion sessions that we have. So that is an assignment. You can keep it in mind. So we are discussing about the point that going beyond the physical identities that we have with respect to people and things, we are now trying to realize our own true self irrespective of that. And that state is where we see oneness in everything and everyone. There is just oneness. So how do we develop that attitude? How do we see our own self in everyone? You know, when we develop that attitude, before we get to that point, before we develop that attitude, when we try to develop this attitude, the third line in both the verses, 24th and 25th, they're talking about impatience, anger, try to overcome that. You know, there is no place for anger or impatience as, we develop this attitude of seeing my own self in everything else. Amma is a good example for that. One of the examples Amma gives, before we get to Amma's own example, Amma gives the example of our body parts. They're all different. You know, this is a hand, this is the right hand, this is the left hand, this is the neck, these are the eyes. You know, Whatever else I can point out to, all those are separate entities. But as a body, they are one and the same. So if my right index finger pokes into my eye doesn't go and attack the finger back. Rather, the same finger may caress the eyes trying to make it feel okay, or the other hand would come and make it feel okay. Or if my right hand gets cut, the left hand comes to help the right hand. Why? Because we have the identity that they're all one. Because they're all one, there is no time to even think. It just happens. It just spontaneously happens that all the other entities come in helping out the one that is in distress. That is the state of oneness that we need to get to. Similarly, each one of us are the representation of the same Supreme, are the reflection of the same Supreme. So one gets affected, we should just naturally flow towards that. And that's what Amma's example helps the best when we look at it. Once a devotee in San Ramon, while the darshan was going on, I'm not very sure whether the devotee is from San Ramon. It was San Ramon where Amma was giving darshan, and this person came and asked Amma. He always jokes with Amma, makes Amma laugh. He asked Amma, will you marry me? And Amma said, who will Amma marry? Because for marriage, there need to be two people. Only two people can marry. But in Amma's case, Amma sees only oneness. If there is only oneness, there is no significance for marriage there. Because only when there are two, they come together as through the process of marriage. If there is only oneness, there is no marriage. Though Amma responded to him, he asked a question in a humorous tone. Amma responded in a humorous tone, made everyone laugh around, but it was a very profound point. Amma was mentioning there is no point of marriage if there is only oneness. Amma just sees herself in everyone. Amma sees everyone in herself. When reporters or people ask Amma, how are you able to sit for so many hours, 15, 16 hours, sometimes 22, 23 hours, giving darshan, sitting just in one place, embracing people, listening to their problems, sharing sweet words with them, how are you able to do that? Amma says there is no effort. You consider it as effort because you see me different from everyone else. But I see myself in them, I see them in me. I see only oneness. When there is oneness, there is no effort. Then there is no pain. You just do it. It's like Amma gives the example of when we break one of our legs. Say we have a fracture and we have to hold the leg up in the air. You prop it up with a pillow or some such and keep it facing, positioned upwards. That is quite a bit of discomfort for the rest of the body. The body, you cannot move, you cannot walk, and you're always in one position. But the hands do not complain, telling, hey, I hate you because you have a broken leg. They are also patient. Your head is patient, your back is patient, every part of the body is patient along with the leg. Unless and until the leg heals, every part of the body cooperates with the leg, right? Similarly, Amma says, when you just feel, why is that happening? Because the concept is there is just oneness there. Everything is one body, though they are all different entities. Similarly, Amma says, when Amma just feels oneness, then there is no strain. It's just part of healing together. So there is just oneness. So there is no effort, there is no pain, there is no strain. Again going with the point of oneness, one another example with Amma. When Amma is asked, Amma, how are you aware of me when I call out to you? You have so many children. And a very simple answer that Amma gives, again which is very profound, Amma says, when you call out to me, it's like we have countless number of hair on our head. We are never aware of, it would be difficult to comprehend being aware of every strand of the hair. But one strand of the hair gets pulled, you immediately become aware that this particular strand of hair got pulled. Similarly, Amma says, there is just oneness. You're all part of me. Everyone is part of me. I am part of everyone. The hair is part of the body. Even one insignificant part of the body, one strand of hair gets pulled, my body becomes conscious of that. So that, again, in that state, we are in that state of oneness where we just identify ourselves with them, identify them with ourselves. So what would help us get to that state? To remain focused on our goal. And the scriptures point out the goal, the ultimate goal is realizing our own true self. The ultimate goal, when you say realizing your true self, it goes into a self loop, right? To realize our true self, we need to have goal. What is our goal? Our true self. So it goes back to the same thing. That's why we have images, we have examples of divine like Rama, Krishna, Jesus, Amma. All of them are inspiration for us. We first keep them as our goal and try to become like them. In that process, we realize our own true self. We realize we are not different from them, and we realize our own self. When we remain focused, it always helps us move forward. It's like when we are in a group and we have a goal, automatically everyone in the group works towards it, right? You may have two players in a football team or in a soccer team or in a cricket team who may not get along with each other. But when they play for that team, they keep all their differences aside and play for the team because they have a goal that they are trying to reach. The team has to win. When that is the goal, automatically all their selfish, ego-based thoughts are all they're all put on the side stage. They are not important there. So when we keep our focus on the goal, automatically all these hindrances that we have, they become secondary. So we convert my into ours, and we convert ours as my. So ours and my just become one and the same. What is mine is ours. My objective becomes our objective. Our objective becomes my objective. And that is verily the stage of oneness. That's why in Sanatana Dharma, it is not, the term used is Atma Sakshatkaram. Atma Sakshatkaram is self-realization rather than God realization. We start in the direction of God realization. We have an image. We have a form of the Sadguru or an incarnation. We start with that, but eventually we take a turn which is towards our own self, because they set the example such that we eventually turn towards our own self. So in Sanatana Dharma, it's about self-realization rather than God realization. So we need to realize the me in me, which is independent of any external factor. So that's what we started with, the 23rd verse, the 24th verse, and 25th verse are continuing with that. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 5, we'll not get too much into it. It's past 8:30, so we'll end in a few minutes. So Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 5, it goes as Uddharet Atmanatmanam na Atmanam avasadhayet Atmeva hyatmano bandhu Atmeva ripuratmanah. Uddharet Atmanatmanam. Uplift your own self through your own self, by the means of your own self. Who will help yourself come up? Your own self, no one else, nothing else. Your own self. Na Atmanam avasadhayet. Don't let your self bog down, degrade. Who is your best friend? Your own self. And who is your worst enemy? Your own self. The more we are bound by our ego, we ourselves become our own hindrance. We bound by love, good qualities within us, we become our own friends in uplifting us. So it's no one else, nothing else that matters. What matters is our own self. And that is what we need to realize. That is what we need to be bound with. And when we start focusing on it and we start growing, we see the very same self in everyone and everything. So we'll stop today's discussion at that. And we'll continue the next week, because 26th verse is in continuation with this. 23, 24, 25, 26, even 27. They're all in continuation. So one last point that this verse, I just want to highlight that point, and then we'll discuss it the next week. the 25th verse, the second one that we discussed today, is stressed upon having an equipoised mind. Only when we have the equipoised mind will we be able to realize or get to this particular stage. So we'll discuss about it the next week. We'll discuss about equanimity or equipoised mind. So we'll discuss that in the next session. Someone was trying to correct me, telling it's not next week, it's the next session, because the next week we will not have the discussion, because I'm doing a small tour of Southeast in the state of Florida. We're having satsangs literally every day in different cities in Florida. So on Wednesday too, I have a program or a satsang and a talk. So that's the reason we will not have the scriptural discussion the next week. So we'll have it the next week, the week after that. So we'll discuss the 26th verse, continuing on this topic, starting with equipoised mind the following week, the first Wednesday of June, if I'm not wrong. So we'll stop the discussion here. We are already 6 minutes past 8:30. So we'll end the session here. We'll do the chanting of all the 25 verses the next week, the next session. Thank you for your patience. What's it? June 1st. June 1st is when we'll have the next session. Thank you for your patience. Let us conclude, sincerely praying to the Almighty that every being in the creation is happy, content, and peaceful. Let us chant Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu together 3 times. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.